So that was Daniel Jones in the press conference talking about his neck injury, going down in the game in a blowout, and he might be out a couple of weeks. We'll have to see. The injury report this week is a long list. We are the Three Angry Giant fans, which host Scott, Giant Mike, and Jets fan Novak. Cardone's on the bench today, and we're much like the Giants. We're down a man. We're depressed. We've lost hope. The Jets got a little boost in the arm this week, but other than that, we're all just we're prisoners watching the NFL move along without us.
And prisoners is a correct word. I mean, this does feel like some kind of torture or some kind of punishment right at this point. But I put it in motion to stop opening the podcast with these press conferences. They keep getting more and more depressing. Every one of them sounds like a eulogy. It's brutal.
And it doesn't seem like there's it's going to turn around anytime soon, does it?
Yeah.
I mean, the schedule you guys face is out of control.
Giants get the Bills this week. The Jets get the Eagles. So I mean, we could be talking next week about 2 more losses.
It sounds like that's going to be the case. Yes. I mean, if early indications are showing that we're going to have 2 losses to discuss next week. Yes. So Cardone's coming back for the perfect time.
Yeah, he'll be 2 losses in by the time he gets back, man.
That's true.
I don't know if we have that much show.
You know what's funny about this? It's sad too. We're just resigned to the fact. We're like, yeah, 2 more losses. We're good. We're check them off.
I mean,
there we go.
How could it be anything else? I mean, what hope do we give either team to beat the Bills or the Eagles? I mean, come on.
Yeah, 0.
Let's give a shout out before we get into any breakdowns of anything in depth. So, hello, Cibolo, Texas. So it's a suburb of San Antonio. Pretty big population for our normal towns. It's population 32,276. And the word Cibolo means buffalo in Comanche. So it used to be called Fromm's Store because Charles Fromm opened a store there many years ago. So now it's the Fromm Store.
If I had 3 guesses, I might have guessed that. So that's from San Antonio, Texas. I wonder if that's Dallas fans down there tuning in to listen to the Giants' misery because they couldn't listen to their own misery from the past week. That's interesting.
Sadly, I think that's probably what it is. Let's be honest.
For some reason, we had 4 downloads from Los Angeles. So I'm wondering who's scouting us. Is it the Rams? Is it the Chargers? I don't think any of them really have us on our radar. So,
yeah, we do. We play them, right? I know we play the Chargers.
The Jets have the Chargers in a couple of weeks, but I don't think they're listening for the Jets. Let's be honest.
I don't even think Chargers fans scout their own team. I don't think they're looking deep.
Do they have any fans? Have you seen these games?
Yeah, I know.
A couple of years ago, before we went through the regime change for the Giants, we were getting regular downloads from East Rutherford, New Jersey. We've not had one since the new people have taken over. We might need to have them listen to our voice and say what's going on here, because we are going to get into it. We have some questions about what needs to be done. What is the problem? I mean, if you look at the Giants Dolphins recap, Giants got a pick 6. They finally got 2 turnovers. They won the turnover battle, didn't turn the ball over themselves, but Jones was hurt, sacked 7 times. We couldn't stop the run on defense. We really couldn't stop the pass on defense. We couldn't do much on offense. Again, I think the offense produced on their own, 10 points?
Yeah, that is that game's depressing for a number of reasons. It's a carryover from the Seattle game, and I think maybe the Seattle game was a little bit worse because you kind of had this feeling that maybe you could win that. But those stats that you point to, we talked a little bit about that last week, how if you look at the stats on paper, you would think, oh, this is a close game. But even with the Giants doing things they need to do, they get turnovers, they hold on to the ball. They're doing these things, and they're still getting beat by 2 and 3 touchdowns. That is terrifying business right there. That really is. You look at the scores of the games and you would think, oh, the Giants turned the ball over 4 times, or -4, a bunch. The only thing really that illuminates to that is 2 stats. And if you see them, and if you really understand what's happening when you see them, you can understand what's going on. And that is the number of sacks and the yards per rush. When you those 2 offensive line stats, they stand out and they cloud everything else.
I think when you look at the breakdown, I mean, the offensive line, we've talked about it. We're going to talk about it a little bit later here, but it's not getting better. It's actually regressing, and I don't know how there's any improvement moving forward this season. So, I mean, we got a guy that's visited both the Giants and the Jets, La'el Collins. So even if the Giants were to get him, he's coming off injury. He hadn't been great in his last couple of appearances before going down, and really was moved out of Dallas because he was getting ineffective. So, you wonder, are there any stopgaps out there? Novak, you brought it up in the preseason about offensive line play just being terrible across the league. It's at a gross level with the New York Giants.
I mean, I haven't seen anything like the Giants offensive line in the how many years I've been watching football. It's probably the worst. And I'm not, again, I said it last week, I'm not throwing shade. It is probably the worst I've ever seen. There are people in the backfield on every single play, and they're trotting guys out there from the practice squad. I was watching your game on Sunday. I mean, it's not like you can go out and just trade for that, because any team that has an offensive lineman worth a damn is not trading him for anybody. That's what I get frustrated with, and I'm sure you guys too. You see these fans like, well, let's trade Dalvin Cook for a tackle. Who wants Dalvin Cook? Like, can we stop? I mean, you guys are probably dealing with the same thing. Like, if you have a halfway decent tackle or a guard or a center, you are not trading him for a washed up player or even a late round draft choice. They're at a premium. You want that.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's an excellent point. I mean, you're not like that. This is why well, there's several reasons I'm not excited by Collins. Scott just mentioned a couple of them, but in this league right now, if this guy could play at all, he would be on a roster.
Exactly. Yes.
He would be on a roster.
Yes.
I don't see any savior material in him.
Yeah, and I don't even know. There were a couple comments about whether this is a scouting issue with the Giants. I don't know if that's the case. I mean, I think offensive linemen coming out of college, it's very difficult to determine what they're going to be and what they're, how they're going to perform. Andrew Thomas was highly rated coming out of college. He had a very bad rookie season, and then he rebounded. Evan Neal, consensus top 10 pick. You'd be crazy if he fell out of the top 10. He's been terrible with us so far, and he has not turned around like Thomas has. So you don't really know what you're going to get. And it all comes down to name recognition for fans. So, the fans gravitate to the Collinses. Even Giant fans are like, well, hey, look, Justin Pugh wants to come back. Let's sign Justin Pugh. Justin Pugh wasn't great when he was here the first time. He was part of the offensive woes that we had before. I know the Jets now, they're getting some offensive line injuries. So every team right now is struggling with the offensive line. Look at the way it's affected the Cincinnati Bengals with Joe Burrow not being able to have mobility and then the offensive line not helping. It's systematic throughout the NFL.
Yeah, I'll go back to my word from earlier. It's depressing, because I'll bet you if there's one team out there, I can't name them right now, who has spent more draft capital on their offensive line than the Giants have over the past 5 years. And this is what we're left with. And you just spelled it out. Thomas is great. He's not playing right now. That doesn't help us. Schmitz has come in, and he's not really, there's a couple of little things I've seen, but he is having a great rookie year. Again, not on the field to help right now. And Thomas or Neal is a stiff. Neal's a stiff. I am hoping that, he can figure this out, because he's supposed to be talented. He's supposed to be athletic. And, we've got him in there at right tackle. I know he's a natural left, but if you can't play right, you can't play left. It's not like you're going to plug him in at left and all of a sudden he's going to get limber and stop walking around like Frankenstein out there. He's a problem right now. He's a big problem because of the amount of capital that we have in him. It's really difficult to now go draft a high tackle. You almost can't, which is fine because we have holes at both guards. So if we want more capital on the offensive line, we can throw it at guard and maybe hope to sign a right tackle in the offseason. But to me, this season is over. It's evaluation time. I can't believe in week freaking 5 I'm saying that. But it's really time to evaluate Neal as long as he'll stay out there and play. Because it's not 2 years in is not too late to cut bait on someone who's been as bad as he has. Now, if he was just average, then no way you get rid of him. But he is not average. He stinks really badly. And, we've got to move on if that's the case. But like I said, I just can't imagine another team has done this much and drafted these players when they've drafted them. When we drafted Thibodeau and Neal in that draft, that should have been our tackles for a decade. We should have had Thomas and Neal. We should have had to mention tackles again. It should have been over. And now here we are. It was hard for me to imagine Thomas becoming a serviceable NFL left tackle, how bad he was his rookie year. And I was wrong. And everyone was wrong on Thomas. The word bust was thrown around a lot. He is clearly now in the top 5 offensive tackles in the league when he's playing. Evan Neal, I hope someday I'm saying I'm wrong again, but he's, it would seem to me like with Thomas, I'm sorry, I'm going on and on about this. I'll stop. But it would seem to me like with Thomas and Schmitz out, that teams would be attacking our left side and kind of leaving Neal alone if he was even serviceable. They're not. They're still attacking Neal, if that tells you anything.
Neal's getting beat cleanly too many times a game for it to be, an issue where it's not physical or it's not mental. It's something that he's just not good at tackle position. Man, now maybe he could be like Eric Flowers, where you move him into guard, and maybe he could be serviceable there. But that's not an experiment teams usually do mid-season.
No.
Now, I didn't mention to the people on the podcast this episode that I'm in Germany. So I'm in Germany another 9 days. But the dilemma here is we almost have to have a save the season party before I get back.
I think we missed the save the season party. The save the season party had to be for Seattle. And we saw how that went. The other thing I'll mention since you mentioned you're in Germany, to our listeners, usually our production value on this podcast is much higher than what you're hearing right now from our friend Scott. He is coming to us live from a tin can with a string on it right now. And so we're doing the best we can. We got Darren back there on the control board trying to clean that up, but I think we got what we got.
Yeah, I really don't have my headphones. I'm it's 2:30 in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. I didn't even drink last night to prepare for this podcast.
God.
That is dedication right there, man.
So dedicated. And this awful team.
And I thought maybe I could give a boost. So Mike and Cardone were watching the game last Sunday against the Bills, and my flight was a little bit later in the day, so I thought I might put some energy into the game, and showed up. And it's funny, Novak. I mean, the Giants are losing. They're getting soundly beat. We realize they're going to lose, and we're not angry. We're just resigned. We've accepted defeat.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell it on your faces. You guys are just like, ugh. I mean, they're just awful. And what else do we have to say at this point? I mean, it is clear, and the frustration is just it is definitely palpable. You can sense it. Like it's. The offensive line thing is just crazy because Mike has been saying this for years. And even as a listener, I was, he was talking about offensive line, and it's worse than it was 3 years ago.
I mean,
how is that possible? And you really can't blame Shane for drafting Neal. Who was out there saying that Evan Neal was going to be a bust? Nobody, right?
Nobody.
Alabama, top program in the country. He looked great, looked the part, has the size, has the versatility, is athletic. And he sucks. And there's no way to know that. If you had drafted a quarterback like we did at number 2, and that's a bust, you can blame the GM. I'm sorry. You can't blame Shane for this. Anyone would have taken him at that spot.
Yeah, that's part of the frustration is this, well, maybe that's actually makes it a little less frustrating, to think that we passed on a guy like Neal for someone who stinks, and now Neal's over there being a Pro Bowl tackle somewhere. That would be more frustrating.
Well, in sunnier news, the Jets beat the Broncos, and Sean Payton sort of got his shit pushed in, and
how
it's
great
it's
was that?
enjoyable to watch this season with the Golden Boy finally taking some hits.
Oh man, that was fantastic to watch. Now I understand that, look, it's the Broncos and they're not anything to write home about, but the fact that we beat Sean Payton after he popped off in the offseason about, the offseason heroes or whatever he called the Jets. And yeah, they were. And I was the first one leading that charge, right? Too much talk about the Jets, but to turn around and beat them the way they did, over 400 yards of offense against Sean Payton, to me was fantastic. Um, they didn't play great. I mean, Zach Wilson was okay. My I'll just break it down real fast. The one thing that worries me about Zach Wilson is his situational awareness, right? If you saw at the end of the first half, that 20 seconds left, they're in the 18-yard line, and he throws a pass to Uzama, I think it was, short of the sideline. He gets tackled inbounds. They've got to spike the ball. He couldn't do it, and they lose a chance to get 3 points. And at the end of the game, he throws an interception to Pat Surtain, which it should have been a side to a pass to the sideline to Garrett Wilson. He threw it inside, and it should have been outside, and it got picked. He's got to know better what to do with the ball there. The defense was fantastic. They were on Russell Wilson all day long. They even had DJ Reed out, and Bryce Hall, not Brees Hall, filled in admirably and actually got the winning touchdown there on the fumble recovery. Um, but of course, with any Jet win, much like in week 1, it comes with a price. And we lose our stud right tackle in Elijah Vera Tucker, out for the season with another fucking Achilles. So can we just win a game and not have it be, but we lost our quarterback, but we lost our, our star tackle. It's just so Jets. Um, so look, happy they won. They should have won. Probably should have beaten them by more, but I was happy to walk out of there with a win against Sean Payton for sure.
Guys, has Russell Wilson completely fallen off the cliff? Is he done as an NFL quarterback?
I think so. In watching that game, he has the ability to scramble still a little bit, but he seems to have lost. I don't know. There's something about him that he's lost. I don't know if he's lost um, his scrambling ability. I mean, he's not as fast as he used to be. He can run straight ahead, but I don't see he's not avoiding tackles like he used to be able to do. He holds the ball in one hand, and at the end, he got it knocked out. He's making poor decisions. And I loved, there's not two more annoying people in the NFL than Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. To see Sean Payton going after him at the end of the game was freaking fantastic. That's all I got to say.
I love wins like that. Very satisfying. Very satisfying. That's fantastic.
They're giving Hackett the game ball. I mean, it was just so many great things about Sean Payton losing that game.
Yeah. I mean, it's bothered me from the start. Who does this guy think he is, coming back in from the studio after so long gone and starts immediately talking junk? Like, did he honestly think he was going to step into the Broncos situation and be able to back up that shit he was talking? Like, that's, yeah.
He seems to have lost it too, because there was a play in the game where the Jets corner came out. So they were down to a practice squad guy that they just brought up. And the Broncos had like third and I don't know what it was, 7 or something. Why would you not pick on this practice squad guy that just came into the game? And they ran like a reverse. I'm like, what? If any coach has any credibility sees that you've got a practice squad corner coming into the game for probably one play, go after the guy. And they didn't. That shows me maybe he's lost a little bit, and I hope he has, because he's annoying.
Well, not only Sean Payton in that situation, but the Russell Wilson I knew back who was winning a Super Bowl would have got that play call in the huddle and said, "Fuck that, we're throwing at 26," or whoever that is out there. So Yeah, for both of them to miss an opportunity like that, I agree with you. And the other thing I agree with, and I just had to go check, I wanted to make sure that I was right before I said this, is the Giants' only win also came with losing Barkley and Andrew Thomas. So that's there's always a price if you're a New York team for a football win, I guess.
And we
But
don't even get to enjoy a revenge win against anyone. We might not see a revenge win until 2028.
no, I mean, yeah, there's not even really anything on our schedule. I mean, beating Dallas would be nice. If I guess that's like our Super Bowl now. To try to beat Dallas and beat the Eagles. Neither one of those things seems remotely possible, but it kind of seems like that's what the season is now.
It's hard to believe. I mean, I mean, we're in October. What are we? October 12th or 13th or whatever. Not
Yeah.
even yet, and this is where we are. It's pretty pathetic.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, we were just calling for competitive games in November.
Yeah.
And that really happened last year, finally. And actually, a couple of years before that, I think it was Judge's first year, we had a chance to get to the division title with a losing record. But this is misery, and we're right back to where we were as one of the franchises that's in the bottom, just like we were. I mean, the Jets and Giants have had a similar arc for the last decade.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I don't know what the question was for you guys, but when we get to questions, if it's not asked, I'm gonna ask the two of you and put you on the spot. So just remember that.
All right.
All right.
I was thinking the same thing, Scott, is, this is, remember, Cardone, well, from the day we started doing this podcast, one of Cardone's big rants has always been, why are we depressed and mathematically eliminated before fucking Halloween? And, here we are.
Yep.
Here we are. Yeah.
All right, so Giants take on the Bills this week. It gets rosier for the Giants as they may go into this game down Jones, Barkley still, Thomas, Schmitz. They're talking about Lemieux being out again. I think there's three. Is Waller on the? He's on the
Waller,
injury
Wandale.
list. Wandale Robinson has a concussion.
Yep.
Talking 7-8 guys right now. Now Buffalo has had their share of injuries too.
Yeah.
Another 2 season ending to their defensive players, but and they lost the Jaguars in London. But again, we're getting a team in the NFC or in the AFC East coming off a loss. They're going to be angry, just like the Dolphins were. And I don't even see us being competitive. Tyrod Taylor might be our quarterback for this game.
Yeah, I mean, you guys were just talking about Russell Wilson and does he have a spot left in the NFL? I would much rather be starting Russell Wilson than Tyrod Taylor on Sunday. I know that, so maybe he's got a spot somewhere. But yeah, Scott, this game is laughable. I can't believe. I mean, this is, what this game is? It's going back in time a little bit. This is the Mike Glennon era when Jones got hurt. I mean, it's the same thing. We just have zero hope. Tyrod Taylor can't finish an NFL game. He got hurt last week in his 11 snaps, whatever it was. I mean, the best backup and quarterback, we get to put him, or the best backup quarterback in the NFL. We'll get to see some of that this week, for sure. Now he'll probably, just gonna guess that he might look better than Jones, because if I'm playing defense against the Tyrod Taylor Giants without Saquon Barkley with that offensive line, I'm never going to blitz. There's absolutely no reason to blitz at all. The quarterback doesn't scare me. The running game doesn't scare me. You know, maybe on a 3rd and 5, I blitzed it. I don't know, but whatever. I expect him to have a good enough day to set the fan base on fire that he should be the starter over Jones, so that it could just add to my misery. So I'm sure that'll happen. It's the misery. It's just such a pile on year, right? Justin Fields is fucking good now. What's happening? I can't even enjoy that. I mean, I can't have that, which seemed like a lock. I don't know how to evaluate this game. I'm not going to get into X's and O's. I don't even know that I could. I've lost a little bit of interest in the whole thing, to be completely honest. I know a host of a football podcast probably shouldn't be saying that out loud, but I'll watch. I always watch, and I'll find the shitty things and pick them out next week and commiserate with you guys about them. But we're gonna get our ass kicked. You want to score? Is it time for a score?
You can give me a score if you want.
Yep. I'm just gonna. Why not? Just 36-16.
Yes, I mean, you think it's miserable, Mike. I'm going to be in Germany. I'm going to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning on Monday morning to watch misery, and it's just going to start the week off terribly. I'm going to be tired. I'm going to be angry. This isn't going to be fun.
No.
We did mention one thing before when we were watching the Giants game the other day. Did we make the comment that so the Bills had a guy injured against the Jaguars? Did they roll in artificial turf to put on top of a grass stadium for that game?
I don't know what happened there. I
I
don't know.
want to say I saw like black beads flying at one point. So I thought that they had brought in turf, which sounds like the opposite of what they do in the United States when they have a soccer match. They bring in grass to put over the turf. Did the NFL make us put artificial turf over actual grass?
They did?
I don't know. I could be wrong about that.
I mean, I guess it's possible. I thought they were playing on turf. It seemed it.
Yeah, but I mean that stadium normally has soccer where they play on grass. So the pitch,
the grass pitch. It says here it was in Tottenham, right? The Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Yep.
Features a grass pitch that can be rolled into and out of the arena. So then they must rolled it out and put in artificial turf to preserve their pitch for soccer. That's why it's not going to work over there. It's another example of why it's not going to work in London. Where they don't let us play on their pitch. Fuck them.
So my score, Mike, very similar to yours. Take 2 7s off. I got the Bills 30, the Giants 10.
Yeah, 16 was. I'm going to stick with it because I said it out loud, but that's way too high for what they're likely to score on.
So
Novak.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you guys a little hope here. And you're not going to win, just so you know. But but the Bills do have a tendency sometimes, down as Devin Tier will admit, to play down to their opponent. Right? They do have a tendency to do that at times. I think the loss of Matt Milano is a lot bigger than people are giving it credit, right? Why is it with the Bills and all these other teams when they lose a star player for the season, it's like, next man up, right? But it's the Jets or the Giants. It's like it's devastation across,
Yeah.
I think it's a bigger deal than people give that credit for. I think that he's a huge loss. I think the Bills coming off of the London game, they're going to be kind of pissed and probably overdoing it a little. So I think the Bills are going to win, but I say 24-21. I think it's going to be a close game.
Wow. And there might be a quarterback controversy if Tyrod Taylor plays in that game because he kept it close.
Yeah, and he scored 21 points. That's assuming that's not a defensive touchdown and a kick return.
So, much like you said that about the Bills playing down to their opponent, the Eagles this year have played down to their opponent, and yet they are still undefeated. So the Jets are going up against an undefeated Eagle team. This is a spot where an undefeated team usually falters, they stumble, they have a break here. So I do think that if the Jets play solid on defense, they have a chance. And for me, this game's going to be a lot closer than I think people think. Your thoughts on the game, Novak?
I would agree. I'm not going to pick the Jets, although I will say I really want to. I actually do think they got a little momentum going here. I think they played well against Kansas City, and they deserve to win that game. So I'm still saying they're 3-2. They're not 2-3 because that's bullshit that they lost that game. I'm still angry about it. They did go ahead and beat the Broncos in Denver. I do think the Jets are going to play very well on Sunday. But I'm going to say they're still going to lose. I want to say the same score as the Giant game, but I can't do that. So I'll say 24-17 that the Eagles will beat the Jets. But I think the Jets will play well. I think they found the right formula. Breece Hall was taken off of his pitch count, so to speak. And I would like to think that Breece Hall is one of the top 3 running backs in the game. After what we've seen, and I think that he's gonna do well. I think Zach is playing better, but I still think they're going to lose. And you know what? The crazy thing is, I expect them to lose, and I'm okay with it. At 2-4 going into the bye, and then we've got the Giants, the Chargers, the Raiders. Winnable games. I'm not saying we're gonna beat you guys, but they're winnable games. That's what I kind of expected. And even with Rodgers, I had them at 3-3 going into the bye. So 2-4, we're 1 game off. Okay.
Yeah, not bad. I have a similar score. I wanted to pick the Jets too. I just don't see them beating the Eagles, and it's tough to go against the Eagles until the Eagles lose, which is a sort of chicken and the egg thing. But I had the Eagles winning 21-17.
117. I completely agree with you guys. I've got a little bit wider score because I think this game is going to be close through 3 1/3 or 3.5 quarters. And then the Eagles are kind of do what the Eagles do. They'll get like 10 points or something in the last half of the last quarter. So I've got the final as 27-14 Philly. But I think it's gonna play much closer than that.
Mm-hmm.
You guys got pet peeves this week?
Scott, do you have one?
You want me to start?
Go ahead and go first. I have one, but I have to kind of put some more thought into it. Don't worry, Lo. Don't worry, Lo. It's coming.
He doesn't want to hear mine, but I'm going to say it anyway. So, my pet peeve is I asked you guys this question a couple of years ago, or maybe last year. I don't remember when it was, and it was, "What's your second team?" And I would agree. I don't have a second team. I sort of root for the Panthers, even though I hate Sir Purr and the whole thing. But I don't have a second team. But what I do have is a respect. I do respect old school NFL, solidly run organizations and franchises. The Bears, the Packers, the Giants. Those types of teams. And one of the teams that I used to respect, who I cannot now, is the Kansas City Chiefs. They alone are my pet peeve. I am so sick and tired of the Kansas City Chiefs in all aspects. It's not just Taylor Swift. They're on every commercial. They have these goofy commercials with Andy Reid where they're basically making fun of him being fat, right? Mm-hmm. They've got Patrick Mahomes with his high voice, and then they've got Travis Kelce, and he's on every freaking commercial. Arrowhead has become like they got Lamar Hunt's granddaughter, posing as if she's basically nude on all of her Instagram. What has happened to classy organizations like the Kansas City Chiefs? And I have a good friend, Charlie, who listens to the podcast. Sorry, Charlie. I'm tired of the Chiefs. I think they've cheapened themselves. They've fallen into Hollywood, and it's the exact type of organization that should not be doing this. So that's my pet peeve for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Over the last 10 years, and Andy Reid is a great football coach. Don't know if he's a great human being or a great father or anything like that, and some of the things we've seen. But the Chiefs have allowed a lot of things to fly under the radar and swept a lot of things under the rug. You had Tyreek Hill there. Some abuse allegations. You had Andy Reid's son drinking on premises and then going out and killing someone, drunk driving. You've had things happen. Eric Bieniemy had allegations against him. It took him a while to get another job, and now he's still not a head coach. He's still a coordinator in a different place. He's with the Commanders now. You've had a lot of stuff happen there that in a bigger market would have not only been a bigger story, it probably would have led to certain people getting fired or losing their jobs and having change happen. And with the Chiefs, that hasn't happened. So I have had a gradual reduction in my esteem for that franchise just because of some of the things that they've let go over the last 10 years. And I think we're seeing now a culmination of that. I mean, you got, Jackson Mahomes dancing in
that's another one. Yep.
Fields and stuff like that. It's just, it's become a clown show for that organization. Now they're a winning organization.
They are.
But to your point, they're getting more. I think they're getting more limelight than the Patriots did in their heyday. Now, maybe part of that's because of Belichick's personality, but still.
But that was actually another point I was going to make. Do you remember the Patriots doing a third of what they're doing? They weren't. Tom Brady wasn't in a commercial for anything until he went to Tampa Bay. Belichick, same thing. Randy Moss, all those guys, they would come to New England and they would transform who they were because they were part of a winning culture and a well-run organization. I want the Chiefs to lose now. Like, I was rooting for them in the Super Bowl. I want no one else to win. I want them to lose more than anybody at this point because I'm so sick and tired of them.
Yeah, that's a great one. I had not put all those pieces that you guys just talked about together and kind of looked at it like that. And you just make excellent points. I mean, the Chiefs should not be an organization that's doing this. Um, they're classier than that. At least they always have been. But you guys both are dead on. Scott, Novak talking more about the Hollywood stuff, and Koss talking about the off the field stuff that has been a problem that's been sort of swept under the rug. Is this the new Cowboys? I mean, didn't the Cowboys originally come from Kansas City? There is a tie in there. I mean, what you were describing, right down to their organization that wins, sounds like the Cowboys of the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Is an organization with just not a winning organization, but not an organization that you'd put at the top of any classy charts. Just not just more Hollywood, more the dance strippers on the poles inside the stadium for the Cowboys. And this is at least the Cowboys aren't Jerry Jones's daughters who are shaking it. So maybe but Jerry Jones's daughters are probably in their 60s, 70s, aren't they?
They probably are.
Well, and Novak's pet peeve dovetails nicely into mine. So I'm going to actually jump in front of Mike on this one. So my pet peeve was, if you guys watched the end of that Chiefs Vikings game this past week, it sort of compiles everything we've been talking about with favoritism to the Chiefs, to the officiating of the NFL, all in one play. So there's a play, it's a 4th and 11 play for the Vikings. And Kirk Cousins goes back. He gets hit as he throws the ball. Looks like he could possibly have been at his helmet. The ball goes towards a receiver. The receiver's interfered with. A flag comes out. And okay, you think the Vikings now have a 1st down and goal at the 1 or whatever, pass interference in the end zone. And they flash to the sidelines, and you see Pat Mahomes doing this thing. He's doing the tip ball, and all of a sudden the officials get back and they start talking. And what the officials do is they don't call roughing the passer. They don't call, they pick up the flag for pass interference. And they don't pick up the flag saying that the ball was tipped. They just pick up the flag saying there was no pass interference on the play. And so you can't even review the fact that it was not tipped because the ball was not tipped at the line of scrimmage. Now, if you look back at the replay, I don't think Cousins gets hit in the head. It was one of those hits where he does take a blow to the top. However, the defensive lineman has the offensive lineman's face pushed back and his helmet jammed up his neck as he's going towards Cousins. That's not called. And they pick up a flag for something that's clear pass interference that would extend that and probably give the Vikings a chance to score the winning or tying touchdown. So again, the Chiefs sneak by on the skin of their teeth on a call that is suspicious. And not only was it a call that was suspicious, it had 4 different parts of it that could have been called, and none of it went the Vikings' way. And what did we hear after the game? Bad teams don't get the calls.
Yep. It's so great, Scott, because I wanted to remember to say that too, because they're getting all the calls, but you're 100% right. I watched the end of that game. It was ridiculous. 2 weeks in a row now, the Chiefs have been given a bailout, and it is, again, why? You know why? Does it not make you feel like the NFL is saying to themselves, they're already thinking about the Super Bowl, and they're thinking, Taylor Swift and the San Francisco 49ers. Can you imagine the ratings boost we're going to get if these two teams are in there? I mean, and although I will say the 49ers look incredible, but at the same time, yeah, I just feel like there's this they've got to be in there. And Scott, you're right. I mean, it was pathetic again.
Well, and you know what? We've talked about the bailout, and the 4th and 11 bailout especially is something we would be angry about. But you throw a flag on that play. So
Yeah.
once you throw the flag, you bailed that team out. You then talk about it as a crew and go, yeah, we can't really do this. So we got the Chiefs playing them. We can't bail them out. That we got to pick up the flag. That's the kind of thinking I don't understand. When they do pick up a flag on something that's a clear infraction, why?
Yeah. I mean, it kind of Scott's kind of dovetails nicely into mine. Mine meanders a little bit, but I'll get there. That's why I had kind of trouble forming it up. But so I texted you two during the game on Monday night when I forget even the teams now, but one right tackle for one of the teams. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was a Raider who actually got called for a false start. And Chris Collinsworth, 3 marbs and 2 beers in, was laughing about it and said, he's been watching these NFL games these last couple of weeks, just like everyone else, and he's wondering why he can't leave early. Now, that is a damning statement. And
yeah.
I almost bet that he got a call from the NFL to tone that down.
Was it Joe Buck?
Was it Joe Buck? Or I thought it was Collinsworth who
If
said
it was Monday night, it's Joe Buck. If it was Sunday night, it's Collinsworth.
It was Joe Buck, because you guys said it was Buck. That's right. You're right. It was Joe Buck. So I don't think he was any marbs or beers in. That's Collinsworth's gig. But yeah. So that statement, it was Joe Buck. I can hear it in his voice in my head now. That statement right there is a very damning statement. That is the people who are on TV, the talking heads, the commentators, saying out loud what I don't think they're supposed to say out loud. Is things like that. I mean, they will every now and then question an official call when it's very bad, but for the most part, even if they say, "Oh, I don't know about this call," when they show it in slow motion and Steratore comes in and talks to them, they're like, "Yeah, I can see it now." They will modify their announcing to fit the call. They'll make it fit the call. But I just thought, when I heard that, I said, "Wow." So I almost think now that that's been put out in the ether, the NFL has to address it somehow. And maybe they're just so powerful that they feel like, nah, we're not going to even talk about it. But it's a thing, and we've been talking about it, and it's out there. And it seems like we talked about last week, some teams got the memo and some teams didn't. So all I want is for the NFL to say is it okay for offensive tackles to move early or not? If they're moving before the ball is snapped and you're not calling it, is there something in the way they're lined up? Is there something that, like I talked about last week, where I heard someone mentioning that if their back foot hasn't replanted, it's actually not a false start, which is a complete line of crap. I've watched the NFL way long enough to know that's not true. But if that is something offensive linemen are now allowed to do, every team needs to know it and every fan needs to understand it, because it's inherently unfair. And I think that was sort of Joe Buck's point in that game was, whatever. I watched the Eagles game this week. The tackles left early on every obvious passing down. The Raider did it one time, and a flag immediately, comes out for it. So that's what I just need to know. If it's out there and if it's a thing, then we need to know the rules for it. Is it only on obvious passing downs, 3rd and 7 or more? Are you allowed to leave early? I mean, is that the way? Because clearly something is out there, because these are obvious false starts that are easy flags. And as every NFL announcer would say every time, they're going to call that every time. But something is changing here. And Scott, you mentioned it last week, and I think you hit it right on the head when you said conditioning the fans. And I think that's what's happening. I think it's like, hey, we're going to let the offensive linemen move a little bit. We're not going to advertise it because we don't want them to go nuts with it. But on certain situations, let's let the tackles get a little bit of a head start. If they do, we're not going to worry about it. But again, that's inherently unfair if now 2 or 3 teams have sort of gotten the memo and the other, whatever, 30 haven't. We need to get that fixed up. And I know if they come out and they say, yes, okay, we're going to allow offensive linemen to get a half a beat head start, just like the same half a beat where you don't get a flag when the play clock runs down, then where was I going with that? Crap. That one just flew out of my brain. I told you it was going to meander a little bit. But I know if that comes out, they're going to invoke player safety. They're going to say, listen, it's just another way for player safety. And the whole player safety thing, Novak, you said it in a text this week. I hope I'm not stepping on any toes, but
No, you're fine.
It's bullshit. It's complete bullshit. Every rule that comes out in the name of player safety just happens to help the offense score more points, which is really what they're interested in.
To put a bow on this, the only way you're going to get change is if someone like the Chiefs or maybe even the 49ers is playing in a game and they're playing against whoever it is, just another team, and at a critical point it looks like they're going to get a free play or something like that, and they throw a pick. And then you're going to have someone pointing all over the place. What's going on here? Why is this happening? And then it'll put a spotlight on it. But even that's more of a defensive versus an offensive thing. So it almost has to be one where someone scores like a critical touchdown when an obvious false start happens against them, whether it's the Eagles or the Chiefs or the 49ers, and then have that happen. I do want to go back to my pet peeve, because there was even a more egregious part of that story that I didn't say. And there was a player arguing with the official on the field of play that took his helmet off that was a Chief.
Yeah, that's right.
Should have been an automatic 15-yard penalty. Yep. So the fact that they overlooked that, and you could see the Vikings coach on the sideline saying, number 38 took his helmet off.
Yep.
And they let it happen. And how does an official explain that part away? So that's almost to me like a false start. It's a clear rules violation. You have something that is just blatantly obvious, and you still don't call it. What is the rationale not to call it?
Did you see the ref tell him to put his helmet back on?
No.
Yeah. Watch it. Watch the lip reading. I forget what show it was. They showed it. It was one of those Instagram, TikTok, whatever crap it was. Someone sent it to me. The ref basically motioned to him about his helmet, and the player immediately took the helmet and put it back on. It's clear as day. You have to watch the replay of it, and the ref definitely tells him to put it back on.
I mean, of any call that an NFL official can make, removing the helmet in the field of play is the easiest call. That's the easiest.
There's no debate. You can't review that.
No debate. There's no, that's, it's. So if back to mine again. Scott and I are ping ponging our our pet peeves. If you're going to say in the name of player safety or whatever they're going to say, in the name of protecting the quarterbacks, whatever they're going to say, if you're going to let offensive linemen move a little bit early on third downs, okay, that's great. That's fine. Like I said, we all got to know it. And then, but if you can put a rule in like that, then can't you also just equally say, all right, in the same situation where we're going to let the tackles move early, we're not going to give you guys defensive holding bailouts. Like, how many more advantages does an offense need on 3rd and 5+?
Yeah.
I mean, and if you're the Chiefs, you could just play the whole down without your helmets on. So apparently with the Chiefs, you have to actually take your helmet off and hit somebody with it.
I think we talked about this, though, before with the false starts. The false start never used to be an issue of discussion. It was if you saw someone move, if they flinched, any movement happened whatsoever, this was a false start. And then we got into the era of quarterbacks, doing the pump fake. And then you had the centers like sort of gripping the ball tighter at times. And those things finally got cracked down on. I don't understand where we got to the point and why there's all of a sudden a movement now to allow tackles to move. And when they do, they're almost doing it in unison. The Eagles, we talked about this last week. They've coached this up. They're doing it great.
No question. Mm-hmm. There's no question that they've coached up. There's no question there's something in Hurts's cadence that tells them when to leave. because that's a difficult thing if you think about it, is getting the tackles synced up to move early at the same time. There is coaching that is synced up, and it's well done. We just need to know whether or not it's legal. It's really the.
And honestly, I'm fine if it is legal because, like I said earlier, these offensive lines, you've got guys in the backfield on every single play, and the play is boring because there's so many throwing the ball away or sacks or running away and throwing it out of bounds. Like, it's gotten kind of boring and stale. I would be fine, but you're right, Mike. It just needs to be consistent. If you're going to make this a thing, make it a damn thing.
Yeah, the problem with going legal, and I think this is the same point Mike has made about the play clock too, is inevitably when a flag is thrown because someone's grossly out of bounds, it's going to look like favoritism because they'll be like, well, hey, look at that. Oh no, here comes the flag. And
good point.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they should just say, listen, if the offensive tackles want to, they can line up with a foot in the backfield, or, just make it something that's not arbitrary. Just say, okay, on maybe you'd say it at any time, or maybe you just say in certain situations, the tackles can basically line up off the line of scrimmage. We'll allow that. That way it's fair for everyone. But it's typical NFL over these last few years. It's, we're just not going to call it unless it disinterests us. The taking the helmet off thing is just such a perfect example of that. Anytime, and I've watched a lot of football, but I've especially watched a lot of Giants, obviously, since we're sitting here. Anytime a Giant has removed their helmet on the field of play, it's instantaneous. It's been, and you're sitting home on your couch and you're like, no, you moron. As a fan that you can't do it.
Odell Beckham got a penalty for doing it, and he was actually out of bounds on the sideline, and it was okay for that to happen, but yet he still got penalized for it. And that's you have a chief doing it as he's arguing with the official in the back of an end zone.
Yeah.
Instantaneous. Yeah. I remember when Michael Westbrook did it against the Giants in an overtime game that the Redskins would have won, and it ended up being a tie. As soon as he did, everyone's he did it.
Yeah, I want to say you and I were on the telephone back in the day when that happened, Scott. I think because we were like going, "He took his helmet off. He took his helmet off."
Even you, Scott, can't get on the officiating if they throw the flag with someone taking their helmet off.
Yeah.
Right? If it were a Giant, he took his helmet off. You're mad at the Giant, not at the official. Even you.
Yeah, exactly. That guy's an idiot, and the Giants have done stupid stuff where they've taunted or they've done things, and you're like, just go back to the huddle. I like the other week when I think Thibodeau got a sack in the second half of a blowout, and he didn't do a dance, he didn't do a windmill, he got up and walked right back to the huddle. I'm like, that's what you do when you're losing by 3 touchdowns and you're getting outclassed.
Yeah.
Go back to the huddle. All right, we do have a couple questions, a couple good ones. Now, I think Novak said he had one come in. We'll have to get to our usual Brian Peacock questions. So his one question, he's got a couple, but if Merrick called us into the office, who are we blaming for the Giants' fall? If you have to put it on one person.
I love that question.
Ooh.
Well, I've already made it clear 2 weeks ago that I think heads need to roll for this offensive line, and the only thing you can do now is fire the offensive line coach. But I don't know if that's the person to blame for everything. I mean, I actually think most of the people to blame for what's happening right now aren't here right now. I said it last week, Dable, Shane, Jones, that triumvirate of people, I still have a lot of faith in that group. I think if things get turned around, it'll get turned around with those 3 people here. I don't know if there's a person to blame. Right now, where we are right at this moment, I would blame on offensive line play and injuries. Now, you can't fire anybody for injuries. So I would roll the offensive lineman's head just so the fans knew I was interested.
I think that's my answer too, because defense has underperformed this year. I think, some of the shine's gone off Wink. I think the offensive line woes has put a spotlight on Kafka because his play calling's limited now. But an offense, it goes back to the offensive line, and maybe it would be different if we hadn't been banging this drum for the last decade. But Mike, I know you pointed this out every year as a concern, the offensive line, and this year we went in. I didn't think it was a concern going into this year. I was dead wrong, and we've shown regression now. Neal's not improved. Glowinski, Bredesen, they've regressed. Azudu's not playing well. Azudu has taken it really hard that he's not playing well, but he's still not playing well. So I think you do, just as a, I hate to make a statement move, but you almost have to change the offensive line coach just because that's the root of all the problems right now.
Yeah.
The main problem.
And don't forget, with Thomas, I don't know when we've had the whole offensive line we intended to play this season. I guess it was just like the first 3 quarters of the Dallas game, really, before things started falling to pieces there. But we didn't look good then. And, Dallas has got a great pass rush and all that. But listen, there are other offensive lines in this league that have just really 2, maybe 3 high-level offensive linemen, and they bring up the quality of the entire offensive line, right? And I don't know. I don't think that's anything they outwardly do. I just think, if your tackle and center and guard are good on a 5-man offensive line, you can do things to cover up for the other less talented tackle and guard. But the Giants just don't seem to be able to do that. Like, if they have a weakness, it gets attacked. And when it gets attacked, they fall apart. And I don't know where else to put that but the offensive line coach. I know I think was it under Judge where he made a change at offensive line coach and it helped immediately? Am I thinking about that?
Yeah, I think he almost got in a fist fight with the offensive line coach. Yeah. Replaced him, and then next guy came in, and we saw that's when we saw Thomas start to turn a corner and do well. Yeah. He also asked what the one suggestion is to fix things. I think this team right now is too broken to have one suggestion, but I think the key suggestion is what we've talked about here. It's replacing the offensive line coach, trying to make a move that may pay dividends.
Yeah. I agree. There's not one fix. There's not a signing. There's not an injured player getting better. The one fix would be magically for the offensive line to start playing well. If the next time we play Dallas, if they blitz 7 on the first play like they did on the first play of the season, if we block that up and hit Hyatt over the top for a 70-yarder, guess what? The offensive line is going to start looking a hell of a lot better from that moment forward. And we just haven't gotten there. We haven't been able to stop 4-man rushes, much less blitzes.
We hit that shot to Hyatt in the Cardinal game, and we haven't even been able to attempt another deep pass because Jones doesn't have the time to do so.
Yeah. As fast as Hyatt is, he can't get downfield fast enough for Jones to let go of the ball.
Well, one of the things I appreciate about Peacock is he always tries to involve Novak into the discussion. So this next,
thank you, Peacock. I don't know you, but thank you.
It's a start, bench, and cut of Daniel Jones, Dak Prescott, and Zach Wilson.
Start, bench, and cut. Do they play behind a decent offensive line, all 3 of them? Because if so, I would start Daniel Jones, bench Dak Prescott, and cut Zach Wilson. If they're on their current teams, then it's Dak Prescott, Daniel Jones, and cut Zach Wilson. So I do think at the end of the day, I personally believe that Daniel Jones is a better quarterback than Dak Prescott.
Yeah, I agree with that. All things being equal, playing for equal offensive lines and with equal running backs on equal teams and all that, I think you got a better chance to win with Daniel Jones than Dak Prescott. Daniel Jones turns the ball over, not anywhere near as much as he used to. Not even so much that we really ought to be talking about it right now. I'm embarrassed for myself that I brought that up, but he does that, and he doesn't play well in the face of immense pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Dak, well, we saw what Dak did against the 49ers in the face of pressure. Three interceptions.
Dak tends to throw interceptions when there's not a lot of pressure on him, too. But yeah, we saw Daniel Jones and Dak Prescott look pretty damn equal facing the San Francisco 49ers. They didn't. That's what happens in the NFL. No matter what, if you're Patrick Mahomes or if you're Zach Wilson, if you play against in the face of pressure, either because your offensive line stinks or because the defense is just all over your ass, everyone looks the same. It's the great equalizer.
Novak, were you going to ask a question?
Yeah, I can't wait to get your answer to this because I honestly don't know what you'll say. I'm going to give you guys a hypothetical, and it's actually a hypothetical that could come true. Giants are the worst team in the league at the end of the year. They have the #1 pick. Are you, as you two, taking Caleb Williams, or are you trading away that for what would be, think of the haul that you would get for that #1 pick and surrounding those haul of players around Daniel Jones? Which direction are you going, and what do you think the Giants will do?
On face value, I would take Caleb Williams because of the reputation that he will have coming into this league. However, even Caleb Williams cannot do anything behind this offensive line. So
Correct.
It almost makes sense to take the picks. The problem is you then have a PR problem as well if you use your picks to select offensive linemen that no one has ever heard of, and Daniel Jones only stays another 2 years with the Giants, and Caleb Williams goes on to have a Hall of Fame career. And that's the risk you take with these top-rated quarterbacks. Now, I will say this. We've had top-rated quarterbacks come in the last several years, and some of them have not panned out. And it's really tough to tell those that have. Even a guy like Justin Herbert, who gets universal acclaim, has he panned out? Stat-wise, yeah. Success-wise?
No.
Not really. So it's tough to tell. I think I personally, just because you almost have to take that shot when you get it, I'm drafting Caleb Williams, and I think the Giants would do the same and try and figure out the offensive line behind that, just because I don't think they want to put up with the backlash of if they trade for 4 first-rounders and they use 2 of them on the offensive line, 1 on a defensive player, and 3rd on like a wide receiver or something. 4th on a wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
So Scott and I don't disagree on much, really, when it comes to the Giants in football, but I am going completely the other way on this one. Caleb Williams looks awesome, but he's not, to me, the kind of guy I trust to come in and turn your franchise around. I think he's a guy, as Scott did mention, that has to come into a situation that's already pretty good if he's going to shine. I don't know, and maybe my mind will change as the college football season goes on, but I don't know that he's the, Peyton Manning, of course, is the preeminent example, but I can't. But my mind's drawn a blank. But you don't need
Andrew
examples.
Luck, Peyton Manning,
Luck,
those types. Yeah.
That come in and they know your entire offense before their first training camp is over, and they don't need a wristband, and they're just getting total control of your team. I don't think he's that kind of guy. That's the only kind of guy I think I would pick as the #1 overall quarterback. I also think there's a couple other pretty good quarterbacks in this league or in this draft coming up that you could draft later and actually stash without worrying about the fans and the media going bananas. That you drafted a guy too high and he's sitting on the bench. Now, I would trade it. I would trade him to the AFC. I would take a trade from the Patriots. I'm sure Belichick is dying to get rid of Mac Jones at this point. Novak doesn't want to hear that. He's like, hey,
oh God, that's
how in my hypothetical did Caleb Williams end up in the AFC East? What the hell?
Great. Now I'm not going to sleep thinking about that. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, but maybe the Broncos, a team like that trading up. But there's a lot of good offensive tackles in this draft. I can't believe I have to say that, but I do. There's a kid out of Penn State. There's an edge rusher from UCLA, Latu, who looks just amazing to me. And Joe Alt from Notre Dame. There's a couple other good tackles that I think you could draft back to middle first round, and you'd have to get one. It's sad as hell, but you'd have to do it. And then here's a name. I'll just whisper it. You guys might know where I'm going with this already, but JJ McCarthy might be a guy you can get second or third round in this draft, who I think is going to, play for a pro system in Michigan. Probably will be a pretty decent NFL quarterback. Now, last time I said that about Michigan quarterback, I was very wrong when I said that Brian Greasy would be a better NFL quarterback than Peyton Manning. So I missed that one by just a little
by
bit.
little.
Yeah, not bad. But yeah, there's so many tackles in this draft, and I the one thing that Scott said that I did totally agree with is we will ruin Caleb Williams if we bring him into this system right now without an overhaul.
Well, and the reason I asked that question is you think about what the Panthers gave up, which, by the way, could go down as the worst trade ever if Bryce Young continues to look the way he does, and no one's calling them out. If they gave away what they did for Bryce Young, the Caleb Williams ransom haul that any team that wants to trade away, you're probably looking at moving back 3 spots and
Yeah.
a second round choice and a first round choice the following year, and probably a first round choice the year after that is how
Yep.
coveted this guy is going to be. You're talking about franchise changing trade that would be.
Yep.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean who is it who's got all the draft capital in this upcoming draft? Chicago?
Bears, they might have
Yeah.
the 1 and the 2.
Yeah.
They could get Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. at 1 and 2. Think about that.
Yeah.
Where does that leave Justin Fields?
Yes, Justin Fields is playing well. Yeah, but I just think that I don't think I could take Caleb Williams. Now, like I said, I reserve the right to change my mind on this
Of course.
as the season goes on. And I watch him play. He might get me too excited to pass on, but I'm not convinced he's that generational talent yet that I want to take it 1-1.
Got it.
If he becomes a second number 2 Heisman Trophy winner, he's got to have a better career than Archie Griffin did.
Fair.
So, you guys got anything else this week?
We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and I just saw it. I was out to dinner tonight. I saw it on the TV while we were out to dinner. Is that the NFL Players Association has said we want all NFL teams to have natural grass in 10 years. I'm with you guys. I think we've talked about before that I don't know if that's going to make a huge difference, but I just like the idea of all NFL games being on grass. Has nothing to do with safety to me, because I don't think it's going to be the be all end all safety fix that everyone thinks it's going to be. And I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that.
I think from an optics standpoint, it's good to do that. Again, I'm still baffled that they may have put artificial turf over a soccer stadium for a game in London rather than use the regular grass. Now I'm going to research this and I'll give you an answer to next week if I was wrong on that. But I could have swore on a couple of plays they were showing on the sideline like a receiver was dragging feet and black shit was flying all over the place, which doesn't happen with natural grass. So.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my take is why not? I mean, the amount of season-ending, big, high-profile player injuries this year. Maybe I'm not remembering another year. Seems like it is exponentially higher this year than any other year, and we're only in week 5, guys. And we've had Aaron Rodgers, J.K. Dobbins, Elijah Vera Tucker, Nick Chubb, right? All of these players going out. And if nothing else, it's a PR move, but they've got to try something because this league cannot continue to have this amount of gruesome, devastating season-ending injuries at the level that they're having. We're only in week 5. We've got 12 more weeks, and we could see if we see this continuing at this rate, we're gonna have might as well bring the replacement players back from '87. Like we're gonna have no one left to play.
Yeah. It's it's funny that the things they do to the in-game action in the name of player safety, but something like, hey, let's get them to stop playing on the painted blacktop for this just really doesn't. The NFL Players Association has to force them to do that. I think Let's
And why 10
protect
years
the
though?
quarterbacks who are already not allowed to hit. We're not allowed to hit them anyway, but now we're going to let the tackles leave early.
Yeah, I don't get why it has to take 10 years. I mean, should be able to do this within 5. If
For the
not
amount of money
sooner.
these teams have, come on. It's going to take 10 years. Give me a break.
Yep.
Well, I know it's tough to grow grass in a swamp, but
Good. Tear that shit down and move the stadium.
Seriously. Can I have my own stadium for once, please?
go back to Shea where you had a baseball diamond.
I would do it in a heartbeat. I would go back to play at Citi Field. I don't care. I want my own stadium.
Yeah, every team should be no more sharing. That's lame.
We are the 3 Angry Giant fans minus Cardone this week. We were a little bit listless without his fervor. I may sound like I'm in a tin box, so I'm going to review the audio of this and see what I can do from a microphone standpoint for the next podcast, since I'll still be in Germany. I'm going to blame it on internet connection from being thousands of miles away. So hopefully that's the excuse.
Yeah, I'll buy it.
But hit us up on Twitter at angry_3. Send us questions on Facebook. Appreciate all the support. Had a ton of YouTube viewers last week. Guys, this season has sucked for the Giants. It's not been great for the Jets, but for the podcast, we've done fairly well, and we appreciate all the support. So keep it coming, guys. We really like it, and we'll be back to be miserable next week, I think, because both of our teams could lose again.
Pretty much. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're going to need that Cardone anger shot in the arm next week. We'll just tell him, man, the anger was gone. We were just like drifting along in the sea of misery.
My excuse was it's 3 a.m. here. So
yeah. My excuse is my team sucks.
All right, everyone. See you next week.